watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Mark
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network, a free-for-all Friday. And my co-host Pierre McGuire is joining me here. I am Jimmy Murphy. Pierre, how are you, my friend?
Doing very well, sitting outside a church in Upper Saddle River, New Jersey, getting ready to go to a rehearsal for a wedding and then go over to the rehearsal dinner. And it's weird because, you know, you usually on these nights you have hockey.
Yeah.
There's no hockey, so it's kind of weird. So this is my hockey fix for the day, Jimmy.
Yes, I love it. I'm glad to help you get that. Mine as well, Pierre. You know, you bring up rehearsal dinners, Pierre. I'll just tell you a quick story, very quick. Our good friend Kevin Stevens, I remember when I was married, we had our rehearsal dinner, but he couldn't make the rehearsal dinner. He was invited to the dinner, actually, but he had to scout a game in Hartford. And he ended up bolting down after the game, showed up. We were all in the lobby bar. And so we're all just hanging out, and this bartender comes over, and she says, "Hey, sir, this gentleman over there wants to take care of your tab." And he said to come over and see him. And I look over, it was Kevin Stevens. He took care of the whole tab, and we had a ball with him. And I'll never forget that. Rehearsal dinners are fun times.
Kevin Stevens, one of the best men you'll ever meet anywhere, whether it's hockey or anywhere else. He's just an awesome human being. So blessed to call him a friend and having had the opportunity to work with him over time. He's just a great, great guy, as you said.
Yep.
Hey, Jimmy, you know, the one thing about, you know, hockey, and it's the end of the year, congratulations to Abbotsford. They're up 3-1 in their series against Charlotte. Charlotte's got a lot of good players, Jimmy, that are going to help the Florida Panthers down the road. But you got to give Manny Malhotra and the people in Abbotsford a ton of credit. They've done a fantastic job in this series. And, you know, it looks like they're going to be able to get this thing done quickly. But hats off to Manny. Manny's done a great job with that group.
It's me, another good guy. I don't know him that well, Pierre, but everyone I know that does know him well always speaks highly of him. Seemed like just such a great competitor and a good teammate to have back in the days when he was playing with the Canucks.
Manny was such a good player. So he and Dan Blackburn were both 18 years of age, and they got rushed into the NHL on a bad New York Ranger team, Jimmy. I was there working the games with Gordon Miller. We had so many Ranger games in the schedule. And it got to the point where both those young men were uncomfortable even talking to you because they had their confidence destroyed because the Rangers had rushed them into the NHL. The team was bad. They weren't putting up numbers, and they were getting kind of abused in the local media. And this was really before social media really kicked in. And I felt so bad for both of them. You know, it's one of those things I'll always remember. And you know how I tell you all the time, Jimmy, it's better to be ripe than underdeveloped.
Yes.
And that was one of the reasons why I always felt that, just watching what happened to those two young men in particular.
Exactly. All right, Pierre, tons of hockey news breaking all day. Some of it overnight in a raging party in Miami with the Florida Panthers continuing their cup celebration. I don't know if you saw, but Sam Bennett got up on the microphone and said, "I'm bleeping staying." And his agent quickly tried to calm the fire down a bit, said, "Hey, nothing's done yet, but yes, he would love to stay." If you're the agent and you wake up to that, what are you thinking, Pierre?
I'm really happy. It makes my job easier. They know what the marketplace is in Florida. They know what it's going to take to get him signed. It's going to be just fine. It's not going to be an issue at all. Maybe he has to take a little bit of a haircut. But, you know, quite frankly, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. You know, somebody made the point, and I apologize to this writer because I don't remember the name. You digest so much intel and you just forget the writer's name. But they wrote about, 15% tax rate, whereas they don't have to pay. So let's just say the negotiation started to let's just take 15% off on a yearly basis, on an 8-year basis, and work off of that. This isn't going to be a hard negotiation. No. And if I'm the agent, I'm not that discouraged. I'm so proud of my guy, and I'm so proud of what the entire team accomplished. I'm going to get the deal done. Now it's my job to get the deal done. So I'm actually happy about it.
And you look at Marchand, Pierre, everybody's throwing their numbers and estimates out right now. But I think, you nailed it too. Like, I think you go a little longer. You said that yesterday. You go a little longer, a little less AAV. And I think he's going to be fine with that. And he just seems, the way and obviously everyone's happy right now, but you can see that there's been this instant, I don't know what the word, I guess, connection with these guys. Like, I mean, it's so authentic. You see these guys talking together, getting interviews together. I just can't see him going to market either right now. I really can't. No matter what.
No, I agree with you. I think he's going to be one of those guys that he's really excited about what he's accomplished. We think about different guys that have won cups in multiple cities. I think of Guy Carbonneau, who's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I think of Mark Recchi, who won it in 3 different cities, Pittsburgh, Carolina, and obviously Boston. So I look at that. That's heady company, Jimmy. There's not a lot of guys that can say, oh, yeah, I won it here and I won it there and I won it here. Carbonneau won it in Dallas and he won it twice in Montreal. It's really rarefied air. And I got to think Brad's looking at that going, okay, I could maybe go somewhere else and try to make it the trifecta, or I could stay right here in Florida with an amazing group of guys, especially if Bennett stays in it. I'm pretty sure Bennett's staying. And then you go, wow, that's a really good situation. Really good situation.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other thing too, Pierre, and you would know this better, I think when players get to a certain age too, not that I think he would become a suitcase, so to speak, but I think when you're at a certain age, it's just a fit that works way better. And it's that you also look at it and say, hey, okay, so now what do? I go sign a 1-year deal with another team. And then if I want to keep playing, what if they don't want me anymore? And you don't want to get into sort of that cycle. He's lucky that the first team he was ever traded to instantly felt like home. It instantly embraced him. And I think that's one of the reasons, like, he's just going to say, I'm here. That's it.
That's really a smart statement. And I like how you presented it, Jimmy. I totally agree. The other thing I was thinking about, think about 2 years ago, Florida, Boston. Brad clearly wasn't particularly popular with the Florida Panther players or with their fans. And then you think about last year where Bennett knocked him out right in front of the benches.
Yep.
That didn't go over very well. And then you see he gets traded there, and look what's gone on. It just shows you, and it goes to something I've been telling you for a long time. If you take stuff personally in professional sports, but in particular hockey, chances are you're not going to last very long in the business.
Yeah.
You could be mad at people, and there are going to be people that are going to rub you the wrong way. But if you allow that long-term to pollute your mindset, you're going to have a problem. And I really admire how Brad's handled this whole thing in Florida. I really respect the way Kachuk went out of his way to make him feel good. Bennett went out of his way to make him feel good. Ekblad went out of his way to make him feel good. Yeah. There's a lot to be said about that, Jimmy. And I like what Paul Maurice said. This is the tightest team I've ever coached. That's a strong statement from a guy that's coached well over 1,000 games in the league.
Yeah, for sure. Great stuff there. All right, some news today, Pierre. I'll start with the Dallas Stars. Locking up Maverick Bourque. Now, this is a guy that a lot of fans, some media are speculating could be there and susceptible to an offer sheet. And I guess you can tell me what you think of the deal, but also, Pierre, I'm starting to wonder if maybe, and you were on this from the get-go, that maybe people are getting a little too ahead of themselves with how many offer sheets might be, put down on the table, because I think a lot of these teams are going to lock these guys up.
It's a bunch of malarkey. And if you're one of those guys who've been out there pontificating on offer sheets, it's not meant to attack you at all. I know how the business works. Last year, St. Louis saw a very vulnerable person and team in the Edmonton Oilers. They were over emotional. They had fired their general manager. That old general manager was very good friends with the general manager in St. Louis. None of that's been brought up, Jimmy. We brought it up the day it happened. And so they got Philip Broberg there, and they got, Holloway there. And have those guys made a difference in St. Louis? They absolutely have. Would Edmonton have been a better team if those guys had stayed? Yes, they would have. But just because that happened, I'm going to blame a lot of that on organizational mismanagement, only because there was a lot of emotion involved at the end of last year for Edmonton. And it wasn't just because they didn't win the Stanley Cup. They fired Kenny Holland. They had just brought in a new coach. There was a lot of stuff going on there, and I think they just lost their focus. They took their eye off the ball, and St. Louis pounced. I don't think that's happening this year. I don't think management teams are going to make that mistake.
Exactly. I mean, you see that. That's just a kind of a warning shot to other GMs. Like, you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that GM the following off season. So I'm with you on that, Pierre. And I also, I wonder, I want to ask you this, and I have no idea. This is why I'm asking you. Do agents or opposing GMs kind of float that out there to reporters off the record to kind of just make it tougher on the GM of the player that could become a restricted free agent?
You bet your behind they do.
I figured so.
And you know what? There's nothing wrong with
That's
it.
their job.
It's all fair.
Yep.
It's all fair. It's part of the game. The agent's job is to represent his client to the very best of his ability. And I'm talking about the agent. And, you know, there are a lot of agents who I consider very good friends. One of them we've had on this show many times, Matt Cater. But I could, you know, Patrick Morris, Donnie Meehan, Larry Kelly when he was doing it. I can go down the line of all the guys. Alan Walsh, another one of our friends who's been on the show. There are a lot of them that I really respect. They're very professional men. They're very intelligent, Jimmy. Most of these agents are highly, highly cerebral. They understand the bylaws of the league probably as well or better than most general managers. They really understand how to represent their clients. They understand tax situations. I think about Steve Bartlett in Rochester, New York. Steve and his sons have built an unbelievable business. An unbelievable business, Jimmy. Most of his clientele is referral business. You know, like Jake Sanderson's one of his clients.
You told me this. Yep.
You know, Jake Sanderson's being represented by him because Steve Bartlett represented Jeff Sanderson,
right,
the father. You know what I mean? So it's like the family business. It just keeps growing if you do a good job. Yep. So my point on all this is the agents understand how to push buttons, and they're really good at it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's all part of the game.
They're creating marketplace for sure. Pierre, not surprisingly, Jonathan Taves has an agreement in principle with the Winnipeg Jets in which he will sign there on July 1st. We kind of saw this coming right when we knew he was going to be trying to make a comeback. But just your thoughts on, you know, what he's going to bring to that team, where he fits in. I was looking at their center depth, Pierre. Now, I realize Lowry is probably, they're saying, going to be out to late November, you know, around American Thanksgiving, maybe even into early December.
Yep.
So there's no logjam now. But when he comes back, I imagine they still keep Taves at center. So who would kind of bounce out to the wing maybe for the Jets?
Well, it'll be interesting what's going to happen with Nikolai Ehlers. I think that's
going to be right, because he could hit free agency.
Yep. So that's going to be interesting to watch. You know, what are they going to do with Nino Niederreiter? I think there's a lot of moving parts there, but here's what I would say. Let's just say when everybody's healthy, nobody's playing ahead of Mark Scheifele.
Yep.
I think Taves can be a 1B or a 1C even.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Lowry, Jonathan's going to surprise a lot of people. And one of the cool parts is he's going home. I know he's not directly from downtown Winnipeg.
Nope.
But he's going home, Jimmy.
Yeah.
And it's really the first time he's played at home in a long time, except for when the Hawks would go in there. And I think there's a couple reasons why it's Winnipeg. One, respect for family and friends. Two, respect for the province of Manitoba. Three, Kevin Cheveldayoff was working in Chicago when Jonathan was playing there before Kevin went to be the GM. So there was a relationship that was built there.
Yep.
I think 4, I think he sees that team as a team that has an opportunity to be really good. And I think Jonathan wants to put one more Stanley Cup ring on his finger before he calls it a day. So there are a lot of reasons why, but I respect Jonathan so much. I've talked to you about this away from the microphones, Jimmy. Of all the guys I've known over the course of 35 years in the NHL, he's right up there in terms of leadership capability, being genuine, and also having this unbelievable passion to push people to another level. There are not a lot of guys that can incorporate all those things and still have a very decent reputation. He's one of them that can.
You know, as you're saying all that right now, Pierre, a player just popped in my head that I think is going to really benefit from being around him, and that's Cole Perfetti.
Wow, such a good statement. Totally agree.
Right?
And Cole really started to break out last year. I know we talked about him being one of the breakthrough players for Winnipeg last summer when you and I were doing our shows on Wednesday.
Yep.
And so, look, this is for people that don't listen all the time. Back when Cole was playing summer events, I was coaching a team called the Boston Generals, and Cole played on our team. And I had a line of a boy named Philip Trescu who played at Harvard, kid named McGuire that's playing in Minnesota's farm system now, and a kid named Perfetti that's now on the Winnipeg Jets. They were unstoppable, Jimmy. That line was crazy. Perfetti was so good. And what was cool about it was, I remember one time we were playing a game in Marlborough, Massachusetts, and the score got out of hand. And I benched the kids. I didn't let that line on the ice because it was just out of hand. And a mother whose son played on the other team came up behind the bench. She goes, "You have no class. You're running the score up. You're beating our. You're terrible." And I was like, "Ma'am, I'll talk to you after the game. We're almost done."
Oh,
and
gosh.
No, but she was she said, "Okay, I'll talk to you after the game." And I explained to her what I was doing. She says, "I'm so sorry. I just got over emotional." I said, "It's okay. I get it. It's part of hockey."
Yep.
But she was mad at me. And then I explained to her I had benched this top line. And she goes, "I'm sorry. I didn't even see that." I said, "It's okay. It's okay."
Great stuff.
But it was pretty funny because she was going after me and the kids didn't know what I was going to do.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was really calm, but it was funny.
Not your first rodeo.
No.
Speaking of, let's stay in that division, Pierre, and kind of not exactly in the NHL, but in the AHL. News breaking today from Michael Russo of The Athletic, reporting that he's hearing that the Minnesota Wild are closing in on hiring our good friend and former Anaheim Ducks head coach, Greg Cronin, as their new head coach with the Iowa Wild. Pierre, I think that's a great fit for that organization. I think Cronin is a Guerin type guy, I'm sure you'd agree there. Just your thoughts on if that comes to fruition.
Fantastic hire if that comes to fruition. I'd be so happy for Greg. I know their system really well. He fits perfectly for what they're trying to do there. The potential for them to cultivate young players, because they do have a fair number of good young players, is fantastic. Greg's very good at that because he'll create standards for those young players.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why players like Leo Carlsson took another step last year. Mason McTavish. He might not have been the most popular guy with those NHL players, but he created standards in Anaheim that are going to benefit them for a long time. And he made Joel Quenneville's job a whole lot easier going into Anaheim now because of the standards that Greg created. So I'm actually really excited if, in fact, he does accept this job for Minnesota and for all the young players that will be having the opportunity to play for him.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great fit there. And, Crow, if you're watching, we hope you get it. And we will surely have you on during the summer to discuss that. Staying in the coaching news, Pierre, Steve Spock goes to the Boston Bruins. Marco Sturm had said that he wanted to hire a guy that's good at the power play. What can he do to help that Bruins power play?
Tactically, he should be able to help them a fair bit. The pieces are there.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. I mean, look, people are going to get mad at this in Boston. Please don't misunderstand this. When you lost Patrice Bergeron, you lost one of the best bumper players in the history of the National Hockey League.
Yep.
So that's a big loss. And when you lost Zdeno Chara and that 106-mile-an-hour slap shot, you lost one of the hardest shooting players in the history of the game. Maybe Al McInnes was more consistent and a better pure offensive player, but there are not a lot of guys that could shoot the puck harder and were as feared as Chara. So you take those two components out, and then you take David Krejci off the power play. Like, that's a lot of fence mending in Boston to fix that power play. It's a lot of fence mending. So I would say this. I think Steven's a good coach. I've known him a long time from when he was playing at Colgate for the late Terry Slater, and I was coaching in college hockey at the time. And he's had a very distinguished career as a head coach in major junior hockey with Kitchener Rangers. He's been part of Canadian World Junior teams, and obviously all the time he spent with Pete DeBoer, whether it was in San Jose, Vegas, or Dallas. It's a lot of time coaching with an elite coach. So I think Steven's a very good coach, but I don't know if they're going to have all the parts necessary to have an elite power play. So I don't care who's coaching there.
Well, maybe that's something that Sweeney targets on the trade market or in free agency. We shall see. And then finally, Pierre, the Penguins made a ton of hirings on their staff.
Did they ever?
Wow. Like that, I got back. I went out to run some errands and I get back and I said, whoa, that's a lot of hirings in one day, Pierre. I'm going to go through the guys because I'm sure you know them all, but I'll start with one that I know you're a big fan of, and that's Nelson. Todd Nelson becomes an assistant coach there.
Todd was a player that played for us in Pittsburgh. He was part of the 92 Stanley Cup winning team. He got playoff games and regular season games for us. He's had an amazing career as an NHL assistant coach and a tremendous head coach in the American Hockey League, especially with the Hershey Bears. Won back-to-back Calder Cups in Hershey, not an easy thing to do. Created a lot of good players for the Washington Capitals over his time in Hershey. So I'm really happy for him. He'll do an outstanding job in Pittsburgh.
Okay. Rich Clune.
Richie Clune is a tough son of a gun. Now, he would be one of Kyle Dubas's favorites because Richie played with the Toronto Marlies in the American Hockey League. The first time I met Richie was he was on a Canadian World Under-18 team back in 2005, I believe, over in Česká Budějovice in the Czech Republic. He's a hard-nosed guy, tough guy, character guy. He'll work really well with the forwards.
All right. And then Nick Bonino, who we referenced the other day.
I think that's great because Sid must have put in a good word for Nicky. Nicky's a BU guy. Nicky was a great player for John Gardner at Avon Old Farms. Nicky represented the United States at World Junior. He's back-to-back Stanley Cup winner. He's played in a lot of different markets. I think he'll do a lot of the fixing when it comes to development of young players. Nicky wasn't a super fast skater, so he had to make himself really valuable, and he did that by winning faceoffs, killing penalties, blocking shots, figuring the game out with hockey IQ. And I think that's where he'll really benefit that staff.
Now, Pierre, going back to Nelson, you heard anything on what's going to happen with Hershey there? Because they don't currently have anyone, right?
Not right now. I would just say this. Of all the markets that are available, and I'm telling you the truth, Jimmy, NHL, AHL, East Coast League, Hershey Bears is an amazing opportunity.
Wow, that's what I was going to say.
It's a fantastic organization, Jimmy. The fan base there is electrifying. The building is world class. The area, Melanie and my wife and I just drove through Hershey the other day.
Okay.
On our way to New Jersey from South Carolina. And
nice.
It's just, I sometimes I remember when Bobby, if you're listening to this, I remember when Bobby Hartley was coaching in Hershey. It was Colorado's farm team. And he would go climbing the glass, trying to fight the other team's coach. It was priceless to be there. Bobby ran a very, let's say, intense ship, so to speak.
That's what
but I have so many, and that was in the old building in Hershey. The new building's spectacular. I have nothing but great things to say about Hershey. Anybody that's fortunate enough to get that job will be really happy there.
All right, Pierre. And then finally, Stan Bowman and Chris Knobloch addressed the media today, and the common thread in terms of what they need to improve. They definitely said goaltending, and they kept saying forwards as well. They said, ironically, and this is my opinion, I'm saying it's ironic to me, that they feel pretty confident in the blue line, Pierre, and they think that it's a stable blue line. I don't see it that way. I think they could use one or two more defensive-minded guys back there. I don't know if you'd agree with me.
No, I think that they still have to. That's why I said the end of the year meetings in Edmonton are going to be really intense.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be really focused, and I think they're going to be hard discussions about players, about tactics, and about different potential people working there as coaches. So, and I don't mean as a head coach. I don't think Knobloch's going anywhere.
Right.
So we'll see how that plays out. But this is one where 2 years in a row, they've been exposed in the back end and they've been exposed in goal. So I think they're going to have some pretty intense discussion, I think. It's great to say that in a media scrum 3 days after you've been eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
But I also respect both men a lot. That takes a lot of courage to get up there and speak. And sometimes, you get into the confines of a closed room and maybe your message is a little bit different when you're laying your cards on the table with no media around. So right. I think there will be some changes there.
Do you think, Pierre, could we be looking, and bridge isn't the word, but just a short-term deal for Connor McDavid where it's kind of like him saying, look, I want to win here. I want to stay here, but I need to know that you guys are going to be able to make this happen as well? When I say you guys, I mean management. Do you think maybe he does a shorter deal than a lot of people would have expected originally?
If his agent's on the ball, here's what his agent's done for him. He's created a position paper, and he'll talk about the division opponents and how they're tracking, and he'll talk about the conference opponents and how they're tracking. You can't worry about the other conferences or the other divisions. It's too much.
Yeah.
You know, whoever would have thought that when they were down 2-0 to Toronto and down 3-1 in game 3 on home ice to Toronto, that Florida would come back and win. Yep. Nobody thought that, not even friends and family, you know? So you got to worry about the position of where your division opponents are and where your conference opponents are. And so that's got to be, and it's a lot of work, Jimmy. You know, I do. So just so everybody knows, I do these intense exercises with Jimmy in the morning.
I love it.
And I know you do. And it's part of what Scotty taught me many, many moons ago. And they're important exercises to do. And if you're representing, especially a Connor McDavid appropriately, you have all the paperwork lined up for him. You say, you're going to be better than this team. You're going to be better than that team. You're going to be better than this. You're not going to be better than this team. So I'm worried about them. And here's what needs to happen. So that when Connor goes in and does have a heart-to-heart with everybody in upper management,
right,
he's prepared to say, hey, if we don't fix this, we're not going to be better than them. Or if we don't fix that, we're not going to be better than them.
Yeah.
So that's – and I would – and listen, if Connor McDavid's family's listening, I would demand that my agent have these position papers created. And if they haven't, then I'd say maybe I'm looking for a different agent.
Yeah, I think that he has to do that, Pierre, right now. So it'll be interesting to see how that unravels. I just get I get the feeling he doesn't want to leave Pierre, but he also wants change. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I mean, I read that his wife just opened up a store there. You know, he's got his roots down there now. And I don't think he wants out, but he wants better. And you can't blame him for that.
No, I don't blame him for anything. I love the fierceness in his, will and determination. I thought his messaging was a little rough. I'm not going to but
he didn't sugarcoat anything.
No, that's okay. That's just how he that's how he carries himself. That's fine too. I'll never tell someone, like, I'm in no position to tell somebody how to carry themselves. I believe in telling the truth. Some people like that when I say it, and other people detest it. I can't control that, but I was raised to tell the truth.
Yep.
And so that's what I try to do. Now, again, it might not be everybody's cup of tea. And maybe that's how Connor feels more comfortable, is when he talks the way he does.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take that away from him. All I'm going to say is, if I were starting a team tomorrow and he was available, I'd want him on my team.
You and 31 other clubs. All right. Let's tell you about our sponsor, Bet. We're going to start the Q&A a little early here because we got to be out at 4:45. So I'll tell you about Betway. Obviously, no games to bet on, but plenty of baseball, plenty of soccer going on. I'm sure there's golf, and they think Sunday night is Game 7 in the NBA Finals, so you can see what Betway has with that and all the props they offer. So go over there right now, and even if you lose on your first bet as a new member, you could get up to $200 credit. You can go to that QR code right in front of you to sign up and redeem your welcome offer, or go to the details section on the website to do the same. This offer is not available in Ontario. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 18 plus and always bet responsibly. What do we got in the Q&A today on a free-for-all Friday? Pete Menadakaros, would Alex Lyon, I saw this question, it was interesting. Would Alex Lyon be a good UFA option to back up Montembeault? Then you have Dobis and Fowler developing in Laval.
Alex Lyon is a tremendous backup goalie. He's a pure character kid from northern Minnesota, played at Yale University. Couldn't say enough good things about the way he competes. He would be a good backup in a lot of places. So the answer is yes.
Yep.
I think comes in at a very digestible AAV, I would imagine. So the answer is yes. I would not be afraid to bring him in at all in a backup situation. Not at all.
Remember the run he went on for the Florida Panthers to get into the 2023 playoffs?
100%.
Yeah, that was huge. Yeah. So he's shown that he can play in the clutch when needed. All right, next question. Juice_031017. Pierre, what was it like for you lifting the Stanley Cup for the first time?
Amazing. So the most important thing about it is, I've said this to Jimmy before, you get it and you're all jacked up, and then you throw it over your head and you're like, this thing weighs 35 pounds. It's not like it's a featherweight. It's pretty heavy. And you stand there, and I think what I did, if I remember correctly, I either got it from Gilles Meloche or I gave it to Gilles. I forget. But he and I either exchanged one way or the other. And I remember, I think I told you this, Jimmy, off the air. Gilles was crying. It was hard for me to maintain my composure. I just thought about all the people that had helped me and how grateful I was to my parents for believing in me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I started in the hockey route, I started as an assistant coach in Division III college hockey, and I made $400 for the year. I was a substitute school teacher that was making $50 a day.
Wow.
Working in the Geneva High School and Middle School District in Central New York. And on Sundays and sometimes late Saturday nights, I worked at a bar where I could make about $100 a day. And so that's what I did, Jimmy. And my parents trusted me. They believed in me. They didn't give me a hard time, even though I probably should have been going to law school. They said, if that's what you want to do, go do it. And I did. So I thought a lot about how much trust my parents had in me and how much faith they had. And I just thought about all the people that helped me along the way. It was pretty cool. It was and then to have the chance to sleep with it back-to-back years, Jimmy, that was really cool. That was really cool.
Well, I just hope it didn't snore, Pierre. All right.
I don't think I slept much, but
you just probably sat there with a beautiful grin on your face.
I had a couple beers and a cup was good.
All right. Next question. Tim Sleppy. Hey, Tim, can you speak to Maurice rewarding his fourth line at the end of Game 6? Yeah, I sent that video to Pierre. I really love that. I love that he did point out, too, if not for you, we don't get by the Toronto Maple Leafs when we're down 2 games, Pierre.
Well, do you remember what we've talked about ever since that Game 3?
Yep.
Maurice had to make a difference in the series. So he put Nosek at center, took Sturm out. He put A.J. Greer in the game. He took Sam Miskevich out. He took Boquist out. And he put in Gadjevich.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go track, and this, we said it the next day, Jimmy, if you remember.
I know. Yep.
And I said, this is going to change the series. Paul knows he can't have any guys that don't want to run through the wall for him. And so he did it. And it shows you how quickly people forget. What did Paul Maurice do that for? He did it because Tomas Nosek in game number 1 shot the puck up and over the glass and took the delay of game penalty. That led to the beautiful play from Corey Perry to Connor McDavid to the slot for the one-timer from Leon Draisaitl in Edmonton. They're up 1-0, and everybody's like, the Cup's coming back to Canada.
Yep.
And did you see when Tomas Nosek was skating to his bench, Jake Wallman went over and gave him the business. What do you think Paul Maurice was doing? Paul Maurice was telling those guys, I believed in you the entire time.
Yep.
You guys started this thing in Game 3 against Toronto. You're going to finish it off here in Game 6 against Edmonton. I love you guys. Thanks. That's what a coach is supposed to do.
Yes. I thought it was great. And, I love that, too, when, I remember that moment when you said that the next day on the show here, Pierre, and you look back and you can see just little decisions like that sometimes fly right under the radar. Obviously, you caught it there, Pierre, but I didn't hear a lot of people talk about it until that video came out. I didn't hear a lot of announcers say that. One could argue that was a pivotal moment for their cup run. If he doesn't do that,
it was. Jimmy, it was from the beginning of Game 3 to the end of Game 7 in the Toronto, Florida series. Matthew Nyes, Mitchell Marner, and Austin Matthews were outpointed by Jonah Gadjevich, Tomas Nosek, and A.J. Greer. I didn't make that up. Those are real numbers. That's scary.
Yep. And that just shows you how deep the Panthers are and what they can do. All right, next question. Bert L. Pierre, you've spoken about the character of Ryan Donato. What were your thoughts about the extension sign from the Hawks' perspective? I'm sure you're happy for Ryan to get that stability.
I texted the family right away. I couldn't be happier for Ryan. Back in the day when he was in the Boston area a lot, he skated with us in the summers, and hardest worker, most passionate kid, was always looking to refine his shot, was always looking to be a more complete player. last summer. Matt Cater said it here. I know that I shared it with our viewers and listeners earlier in the year when they were saying, where'd this guy come from? He put the work in last summer in Tampa, went down 2 or 3 different times to do power skating classes because he wants to extend his career. Skating's never been into real organizational strength as a player, but he's made himself a better skater. He's a tremendous shooter. I'm so happy for Ryan. You know, they have a brand new baby, he and his wife, Bradley. And so this gives him the security that I know he's been searching for a long time. And to say that you're a 30-plus goal, you're 31 goals last year, to be a 30-plus goal scorer on an original 6 team, that's something that you can never have taken away from you. I'm so happy for them.
For sure. Congratulations to them. All right, next question. A moment of clarity. Do the Canes have a better chance of getting a couple big free agents, or will they have to make trades? That's a good question.
That's a great question. The answer is, what does the ownership want to do financially? If the ownership's prepared to give Eric Tulsky money, they could be a real player in free agency. But I can tell you, Jimmy, like not long ago, 3 years ago, I was sitting in the office on free agency day and up in Ottawa. And, you know, people are like, well, how come you didn't get that player? How come you didn't get, you don't think we made offers on those players? We did. We didn't have the money. We could only go to a certain number. And I don't want to say that out of disrespect to anybody, but we couldn't overextend our budget. We just had a certain budget we had to work in. And so we did. And people say, well, how come you didn't get this player? I mean, because we couldn't pay over a certain amount and all those players were getting more. So if ownership wants to be a real player in free agency in Carolina, they'll do it. If they don't want to, they won't. And so that's going to be the biggest thing I'm going to be watching for from Carolina July 1st is whether they want to be a player or not in free agency because they're going to have to spend money.
Pierre, but do you think the fact that Rantanen didn't like it there and maybe it was reported Nate just didn't either and he didn't want to extend there, does that hurt it as a destination in the eyes of other players? Did they ask, well, why? Why, you know, what's up with that? Why did that happen twice in 1 year?
So here's a question I would ask. I would get in touch with Jake Gensel, and I get in touch with Jake
Gensel, I forgot too. Sorry.
And no, you're not doing anything wrong. It was so fast with Gensel there. People forgot that he was even there.
Yep.
So I would ask the question of Gensel and his representatives, why did you stay? Why didn't you stay? And he may have said, you know what, I got a better offer from Tampa. And if that's the case and you're a player, then you can say, you know what, I get why Gensel left. It was for money, but they're offering me big money here and I'm comfortable going there. I want to go there. But I would want to know not so much about Rantanen because he never was warm to the idea of going there anyways. You could tell. I'd want to talk to Gensel because I think Gensel was really happy there.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought for sure they were going to keep him. That's a great point by you. All right, next question. Simoch hockey training. Pierre, do you think Christian Dvorak could be a good fit with the Blackhawks for some center depth on a prove-it deal? My bro was his skills coach back in the London days. Such a high character and humble guy.
And he's an Illinois native.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to like about that. Yeah, I like that thought a lot. He would be a good addition there because he's a great puck possession guy because he's really good on the draw. He did not have a great start to the year in Montreal. Everybody knows that. And I'll be completely honest with you, Jimmy, and the listeners. We had a chance to get him in Ottawa right around free agency. And what the problem was for us was when we started slotting financially, we couldn't slot him financially. He was just making too much money for what we needed him to do.
Yep.
And what he had already done in his career. They just didn't equate, if that makes sense. So that's why we didn't take him. But we had a very real opportunity to get him, and we didn't get him. And part of why we didn't get him, too, is we had Shane Pinto on entry level, and we thought Pinto eventually was going to be a better player than him. That's one of the reasons why we didn't do it.
And you mentioned, too, he had a bad start there, but Pierre, he had a great finish. And, like, look, I'll go on that one, man. Like, I wrote him off. I'm admitting that, and I was wrong. And he proved me wrong. He proved a lot of people wrong. So the fact that he's still got that fight in him is a good sign for teams that might be interested.
Well said, and I agree 100%. I hope he does really well, and Chicago would be a great place for him.
All right, next question. Pearl of Wisdom. Do you think you will see more retaining for picks by the likes of the Blackhawks, Sharks, and dare I say it, the Penguins?
And you're saying retaining on contracts, I think is what he's talking about? Yeah, I think another really good point by Perlo. I do think we'll see a lot of retention. I do. I think that's going to be a big part of this.
Pierre, just go. You know what? That's just me. You mentioned the Penguins there. Just quickly going back to the coaching hirings they made. Do those hirings, in your opinion, fall in line with what is ahead for the Penguins? Because they're not hiding it anymore. What they're doing.
No, it's rebuild. They're rebuilding.
So are
those
they
are all
every
guy that's hired on that staff, they're all a developer.
That's what I thought.
Every single one of them is a developer.
Right.
So that's good news for the young players there. But if you're a fan and you're expecting instantaneous results, probably not coming.
Yeah. All right. Next question. Franco, what should the Blue Jackets be looking at to add to their roster? Goaltending.
Well, D, I would say defense.
Uh-huh.
I would still want to evaluate the goaltending situation. But I think that they're well on their way up front. They're really I think Fantilli, as great as Fantilli was this year, he's going to take another huge step. Again, I think Kent Johnson's another guy that's going to take another big step.
Yeah.
Chinakov's another one that's going to take another big. They got a lot of guys. Voronkov. They got a lot of guys there that could take another step, Jimmy. So I think they're well on their way. I would be addressing and looking at the D. I really would be.
All right. Next question. Vincent Royale, hello, gentlemen. Do you think we will see a shift in contract lengths where depth players are getting longer term to bring down their cap hit, but top stars sign short term to maximize the rising cap?
See, I always felt that was going to be a thing, Vincent. I like your question and the way you proposed it. That's why the 7-player profile, something Scotty and I created, you had to have that so that you could build around those 7 high-end players with the players you're alluding to. They get longer term but less money, so the AAV is down lower. So it's a great point, and I think it's taken how long, Jimmy? 20 years for people to figure the cap out? So just to show you the brilliance of William Scott Bowman, we sat on a bench
in
Siesta, Florida, trying to figure out a way to adapt to the cap and be able to keep your team competitive for a long time. And I think we did it because I've exposed it for how long, Jimmy? 20 years?
Ever since
17 years?
Yep.
So, yeah.
All right.
That's Scotty, though. That was Scotty pushing and prodding, and he's just so smart.
I love that it was just on a park bench. That's great.
Well, I think it was more like a beach bench. Does that make sense? Yeah. That anybody that's been down to that part of Florida near Sarasota, they know what I'm talking about. It's like sugar white sand beaches. It's pretty amazing.
Oh, beautiful. All right. Next question. Renaissance Resistor, who has a better projected window for cup competition in the next 5 years? The Habs, the Oilers, or the Leafs? That's a
Montreal.
I'm with Pierre. And I'd say the Leafs are ahead of the Oilers. So I say Habs, Leafs, Oilers in that order.
This is I'll tell you this right now. For Brad Treliving, this is a very important summer. It's not about bringing in a ton of players. It's about bringing in the right player or players, number one. And for Stan Bowman and Jeff Jackson out in Edmonton, it's not burying your head in the sand. I know there are a lot of players you like, but there's some guys that let you down. You got to figure out who those guys are. You got to move them along, and you got to bring in guys that can help you. And they need to start strengthening their American Hockey League team down in California.
All right. Next question. Juice _031 017. Who would win in a 7-game series with the 08 Red Wings or the 2025 Florida Panthers?
08 Red Wings. 08 Red Wings were crazy good, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
They were so ridiculously good. And I'd like to see the 02 Red Wings play against the 25 or even the 97-98 Red Wings play against the 2025 Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
As much as those guys were running around, I'm just telling you, Detroit, they had a machine. Kenny Holland, Jimmy Devellano, Scotty Bowman, the 3-headed monster in the managerial position, Barry Smith, Dave Lewis, Scotty Bowman behind the bench. And then eventually it leads to Babcock and McCrimmon and Granato and all these different guys that coached for Mike in Detroit. But the management was always the same. It was Holland, it was Devellano, it was Bowman. They had so many guys. Yeah, they were amazingly good. Joe McDonnell scouting, Mark Leach scouting. There's so many good guys. Tyler Wright on the road. They had, I'm just sitting here in a car in front of a church talking about it. I just have some amazing memories about how good they were. So as great as the 2025 Florida Panthers are, I don't know if they could have beat the Red Wings from 97, 98, 02, or 08. And I'm not sure, Jimmy, and I'm saying this self-servingly, I'd love to have seen our 91 and 92 Penguin teams play against them. That's all I'm going to say.
For sure. And quickly, too, before we move on from that, Pierre, can you imagine if the current Oilers were able to possess the puck as well as those Detroit teams did? I think they would have stood a better chance against Florida.
Oh, my gosh, 100%. I think that's such a good point.
It was amazing. And, I get how physical Florida is, and they do so many things right. But if a team like Edmonton had that puck possession skill, oh, my God.
So here's what I would tell you. As great as Lundell and Luostarinen and Marchand were, it would be no fun playing against Draper, Maltby, and McCarty. Let me tell you right now, the biggest difference there, and no disrespect meant to any of those three guys that I just talked about from Florida. There were some tough guys in Florida. Darren McCarty gets a hold of you in his prime, buckle up, man.
Oh my God.
I saw him fight in Belleville in the Ontario Hockey League. I saw him fight in Adirondack, and I saw him fight in the NHL. And I'm telling you, that guy is tough as nails.
Yep. All right. We got time for two more. Next question. Juice _031-017. Pierre, what prospect in this year's draft will go higher than expected, sort of like Beckett Seneke last year?
What a good question.
I don't have
where do people have Frundell?
He's rising. Some people have him at 3 now, Pierre.
So that would be one. Where's Misa?
He 2. He's just staying right there now.
He's staying there. Yeah. Where's Martone?
He's kind of fluctuating between 4 and 6.
Where's Higgins?
He's dropping, going down. Some people have him at 9 now.
That'd be a steal at 9.
Yep. What about Brady Martin, Pierre? That's a guy.
No, he's going to go high. That's why I didn't even ask where he's rated. So people see Sam Bennett. Yeah. I hate to do this to this kid. I've never met the young man. I've watched him play a fair bit, though. A lot of people think he could be Sam Bennett. I'm not sure I'm ready to go there yet. Because I don't like doing that to players. You know what I mean, Jimmy?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I knew from having watched Crosby as much as I had, whether it was at Shattuck, St. Mary's, and Rimouski, World Junior Camps, with all that stuff with Sid. And I used to say, he has the strength of Forsberg, the peripheral vision of Gretzky, and the creativity of Lemieux. Most fans thought that I was a complete lunatic and a heretic for saying that stuff. And I'm telling you, I've yet to receive an apology letter from those people that, went after me.
Exactly.
But the point, all that stuff stood the test of time with Sid. So I was comfortable doing that with Sid because I had seen it enough.
Right.
I knew.
Right.
Brady Martin, I never had the chance to visit with personally and talk to him, so I don't know him as a person. I do know him as a player. Athletically, I think he can be Bennett. I don't know him as a person, so I can't say the other side.
Yeah, and I think it's great that you're saying that. I think it's important for fans and even people in my profession to resist putting those labels on as much as you can. Sometimes you can't. It's just a generational guy, and you just know it. But
like Lindros, hey, let me tell you about Lindros, okay?
Yeah.
Any scout that made the trek to Oshawa to watch Eric, they were late to the party. I was watching Eric Lindros play with St. Mike's. It was Tier 2 junior, okay? And for those that are hockey scouts, you know what I'm talking about. The small building at St. Mike's in Toronto, amazing, okay? Amazing building. And Big E would just run around and kabong people all over the ice and destroy them. It was amazing to watch. And so I'd be laughing and be like, this guy's a wrecking machine. And back in those days, even when he was 16, Jimmy, playing junior, like Tier 2 junior, I'm just telling you, or even when he was 15, Jimmy, I'm not sure I'd seen too many NHL guys shoot the puck like him. I'm just telling you. Like, his release point was crazy. So you knew this guy was going to be unbelievable. It's just a matter of, what team was going to take him and how long was he going to last.
Yeah. So that's a great point by you. All right, we'll do one more. I don't want to leave any going there. What do we got? Bert L., you guys talked about roster redundancies in Edmonton, rostering Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson. If you're Chicago, is a smaller, talented player like Hagen's redundant, considering the roster?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. Here's the reason why. I think eventually Hagen's is going to get bigger. I do. Not taller, but thicker. And I think that's a big part of it. And I think that when you look at it, you got to have skill and speed. Here's the one thing I'd say, and Jimmy and I did this exercise. Remember, Jimmy, about a month and a half, 2 months ago?
Yes.
And I was saying to you, I know people are running Chicago down right now, but they got a lot of big guys coming. And I mean, big physical guys, whether they were playing in the American League or whether they were playing in college or whether they were playing, junior. They got big guys. Like, they're not going to be a small team. So if you got big guys surrounding some of those small skill guys, it can work. It can really work.
And they've got plenty of money to go out and get some more big guys if they need. So
that's the one thing where I think they got to be really smart.
Yeah.
I'm not. I talked to one of their scouts about it in the middle of this winter. I'm not going to say who it was, and he completely agreed. He said, we got to be really smart when it comes to getting established NHL players that can come in and really help teach our guys how to play in this league.
Yeah,
with consistency.
I totally agree. They're a team that doesn't necessarily need to make a splash, so to speak, Pierre. They need more strategic, necessary moves is the way I look at it. So, all right. Great show, Pierre. We appreciate it. Enjoy the wedding rehearsal, and I will talk to you through the weekend, but we will talk back here on Monday. Thanks to Shane for working the boards up in Montreal. Thanks to all of you for your questions here and for a great week. And we will talk to you, like I said, on Monday here in the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.